Most High put together. We gon' see. In times. Serpents lurking, watchers watching, Yasharala stay on point. They lurking. We under the covenant, we ain't got no other choice. Gird your loins up, armor up, cause it's time for war. We the generation that's gon' get on one accord. Serpents lurking, watchers watching, Yasharala stay on point. We under the covenant, we ain't got no other choice. Gird your loins up, armor up, cause it's time for war.
In his book, Origin of Species, Charles Darwin said that he considered the black races to be closer to the gorilla than white races, confirmed by this racist motion graphic. Watch as the primitive gorilla evolves into a modern white guy, leaving African Americans back with the gorillas. Darwinian evolution is bogus science. It can't be observed or tested, and when you've got no proof for an unscientific belief, you resort to Photoshop. If you're interested in seeing the painful side of 4 evolutionary professors from UCLA and USC flounder as they try and think of some sort of proof for Darwin's fantasy, watch Evolution versus God. It's been seen by millions.
And until people in this country and people in this world get it into their heads that the first modern human beings that evolved on this earth were black women. They evolved in sub-Saharan Africa about 280,000 years ago, and every human being on the face of the earth today has the memory of those black women's genetic structure in their genes. Now, we don't want to admit that, but that's the way it is. And as people moved farther and farther from the equator, their bodies produced less and less melanin, so their hair, their skin, and their eyes got lighter. As they moved into the east, they ate a lot of fish and a lot of vegetables, so their skin took on a different tone.
Darwin's book on human evolution, The Descent of Man, revealed him as what Dr. John West calls a virulent racist.
He did write extensively about how evolution by natural selection creates unequal races, and that in the evolutionary scheme of things, blacks are the closest to apes.
Darwinism is one of the most dangerous ideas in the world today. One proponent of Darwinism described it as universal acid. It dissolves everything.
Hosea Baxter directs Reconciliation Ministries at Crossroads Bible College. He says racism had always been around, but Darwin gave it an air of scientific legitimacy.
Blacks and Native Americans would be portrayed as savages or ignorant or people who could not be civilized, no hope of being civilized.
Baxter works with Dr. Charles Ware, co-author of Darwin's Plantation, Evolution's Racist Roots. Ware and co-author Ken Ham wrote, on the last page of his book, The Descent of Man, Charles Darwin expressed the opinion that he would rather be descended from a monkey than from a savage. In describing those with darker skin, he often used words like savage, low, and degraded to describe American Indians, pygmies, and almost every ethnic group whose physical appearance and culture differed from his own. Ware and Ham contend Darwin did more than anyone else to popularize racism. Another quote, one professor in the 1880s wrote, I consider the Negro to be a lower species of man and cannot make up my mind to look upon him as a man and a brother, for the gorilla would then also have to be admitted into the family.
Since blacks were somewhere in the evolutionary scale between apes and men, they did not have souls. And since they didn't have souls, some argued we don't even have to preach the gospel to them.
Slavery and segregation kept the races apart, but maybe even more dangerous was how Darwin's theories led to active eugenics.
The idea of trying to breed a better human being.
Baxter says eugenicists were asking,
how do we stop the breeding of these inferior races?
It led to the forced sterilization of 70,000 Americans, many of them blacks. And then along came Margaret Sanger, founder of what would become Planned Parenthood.
Margaret Sanger was very Darwinian and very much inspired by this overall idea that we're counteracting the law of natural selection by allowing people she considered less fit, whether it be because they were poor immigrants or people of other races.
Part of the impetus behind abortion was to annihilate the black race.
Planned Parenthood hails founder Margaret Sanger as a champion of civil rights. But one thing they don't talk about is the racism behind her fight to legalize abortion. A group of African American leaders want to focus attention on her ideology and how it affected black birth rates. Abigail Robertson has more on this story.
Margaret Sanger strived for a society that limited births to only those she deemed fit to have children. Many pro-choice advocates see her as a hero, but critics call her a racist eugenics promoter who targeted black communities with her Planned Parenthood clinics.
Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, once said, colored people are like weeds, they need to be exterminated.
People don't understand that 79% of Planned Parenthood clinics are located in minority communities, and that minority communities shoulder a disproportionate amount of abortion.
Dr. King says while African Americans make up only 13% of the U.S. population, over 30% of aborted babies are from black mothers.
Under the veil of secrecy and deception, 60+ million babies have not been born because they were aborted legally since '73. 1/3 of that population belong to the African American community.
Planned Parenthood recently celebrated its 100th anniversary, prompting pro-life leaders to unite under the banner 100 No More to educate the public on the harmful impact Planned Parenthood has had on the African American community.
Do you believe in sin? When I say believe, I don't mean believe in committing sin. Do you believe there is such a thing as sin?
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin that people can commit.
But sin in the ordinary sense that we regard it, do you believe or do you not believe?
Well, what would they be?
Do you believe that infidelity is a sin?
Well, I'm not going to specify what I think is sin. I've stated what I think is the worst sin.
Yes, but then you asked me to say what, and I said what, and you refused to answer me?
Yes, I don't know about infidelity. It has so many personalities to it, and what a person's own belief is. I couldn't generalize any of those things.
Consider the perversity of that. This is one of the great heroes of the American left. And really, consider the great hero of Planned Parenthood. She says that the worst sin in the world is letting people live. The worst sin in the world is not killing people. And then the interviewer, Mike Wallace, says, what about all the sins that we consider sins? Like violating the 10 Commandments, that sort of thing. Adultery. She goes, well, I don't know about that. I can't talk about adultery. Well, of course not. Because if for this woman, the highest virtue is killing people, I suppose the highest virtue for her would be consent to do all of these terrible things. She is offering, truly a satanic vision of the world, saying that the worst thing you can do is let human beings live. But that is a moral vision.
By the last decades of the 19th century, Darwin's theory was increasingly popular among Germany's intellectual elite. Darwin had claimed that humans and other mammals were the product of what he called natural selection, a blind struggle for existence where the fittest survived and reproduced, and the less fit died off. In his book, The Descent of Man, Darwin made clear that his idea of natural selection had implications for human society.
Charles Darwin clearly was a social Darwinist. He was not as rabid a social Darwinist as some of his followers later on, but he clearly did believe that Darwinism should be applied to human societies.
Darwin worried that civilized societies were harming humanity by helping the poor, caring for the sick, and otherwise saving those who nature would have killed off. Darwin feared that such humanitarianism could eventually destroy the human race. Darwin also predicted that in the future, the civilized races of mankind would exterminate the inferior ones. Darwin himself was ambivalent about some of the social implications of his theory. But in Germany, Darwin's ideas supplied a new generation of political leaders, social thinkers, and scientists with what they regarded as a biological justification for world domination.
If you read the scientists of the day, in the late 19th and early 20th century, many of them were promoting racism and even racial extermination, extinction of races. They were promoting the gaining of living space. They were promoting competition, the things that we know of as social Darwinism. These were things being promoted by Charles Darwin himself to some degree, many other leading biologists.
The war of annihilation is a natural law, without which the organic world could not continue to exist at all. German zoologist Gustav Jaeger, 1870. Just as in nature, the struggle for existence is the moving principle of evolution and perfection, so also in world history, the destruction of the weaker nations through the stronger is a postulate of progress. German ethnologist Friedrich Hellwald, 1875. According to Darwin's theory, wars have always been of the greatest importance for the general progress of the human species. The physically weaker, the less intelligent, the morally lower, must give place to the stronger. German biologist Heinrich Ziegler, 1893.
Not all German Darwinists defended war as a biological imperative. Some, in fact, criticized it for undermining natural selection. They feared that wars in Europe would kill off too many of the superior races. Yet even these pacifist Darwinists tended to approve of wars waged against races they considered lower on the evolutionary scale, like the native peoples of Africa. And it was in Germany's colony in southwest Africa, now known as Namibia, that the social Darwinism of German military leaders moved from theory to practice in the years leading up to World War I. Between 1904 and 1908, the German military attempted to eradicate the Herero people in southwest Africa in what some scholars consider the first genocide of the 20th century. On October 2nd, 1904, General Lothar von Trotha issued what became known as his extermination order, declaring that the Hereros either had to leave German southwest Africa or face extinction. Herero men would be executed, and Herero women and children would be driven into the desert where they would die of starvation or dehydration. Von Trotha justified his extermination campaign by an explicit appeal to social Darwinism, telling one newspaper that human feelings of philanthropy could not override the law of Darwin's the struggle of the fittest. When von Trotha's extermination campaign provoked a backlash in Germany, a new plan was developed to move the remaining Hereros to concentration camps, where many more would ultimately die from malnutrition, disease, and exhaustion. In these death camps, the Hereros were subjected to medical experiments by German doctors, and their skulls were collected for shipment back to Germany to be studied by experts in racial science. By 1908, it's estimated that more than 80% of the Herero people had been eliminated from German Southwest Africa.
Or that. You know, it's interesting. How many of you here have read The Origin of Species by Darwin? Have actually read it? I see a couple of hands, maybe three. How many have read The Descent of Man? I'm not sure I see any hands. Do you know most school teachers, majority, have never read The Descent of Man? Do you know, in fact, most evolutionists don't even know what Darwin taught? You read his books and you'll see what he taught. That's why the late Harvard paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould said this: biological arguments for racism may have been common before 1850, but they increased by orders of magnitude following the acceptance of evolutionary theory. In Darwin's book, The Descent of Man, he says, this is just one example, at some future period, the civilized races will exterminate the savage races. The break between man and his nearest allies will then be wider than the Caucasians and some ape as low as a baboon, instead of now as between the Negro, Australian Aborigines and the gorilla. Do you realize what he's saying? The Australian Aborigines and people from Africa are closer to the apes than the Caucasians. How's that for racism? That's what Darwinian evolution's all about. That's why in 1924 there was a New York Tribune newspaper published that said the missing links were found in Australia, the Australian Aborigines. There were scientists from England and Germany who sent people to Australia to hunt down the Aborigines, to herd them over cliffs or into swamps, and with instructions on how to skin them and boil up their skulls for specimens in the name of evolution. Do you know in 1925, the year of the Scopes trial, John Scopes supposedly taught from a particular biology textbook about the evolution of man and so on, and actually that was a setup by the ACLU. But did you know the textbook that was sort of the center of this trial in a way, and a major biology textbook used in public schools in America in the 1900s and was used in 1925, said this: the races of man, and based on Darwinian evolution, at the present time there exist upon the earth 5 races, the highest type of all represented by the Caucasians, represented by the civilized white inhabitants of Europe and America. Generations of kids in the public schools, based on evolution, were taught the Caucasians are the highest race. And we wonder why we have so much racism and prejudice in our culture.
In the current day and age, the theory of evolution is not merely a theory any longer, but quite frankly a religion accepted by the majority of people worldwide. It is taken as fact without any further questioning. So in today's brief video, I want to present a top 10 that will debunk evolution. Number 1. No transitional fossils. Darwin himself admitted the fossil record should be full of transitional forms if evolution were true. Yet the only fossils found to this very day are fully formed species appearing suddenly. For example, where are the half-reptile, half-bird fossils? The missing links are still missing. Number 2. Irreducible complexity. Some biological systems, like the bacterial flagellum or the eye, need every single part to function. Evolution claims these formed step by step, but a half-built eye is useless. If one part is missing, the whole system breaks down. Evolution can't explain how such systems could have developed step by step without being functional all along the way. Number 3. The Cambrian explosion. Current scientific understanding tells us that about 540 million years ago, nearly all major animal groups appeared suddenly in what scientists call the Cambrian explosion. Before this, there's little evidence of complex life. How could such diversity appear so quickly without evolutionary precursors? Number 4. Abiogenesis mystery. Evolution starts after life exists. But how did life even begin? Abiogenesis, the theory that life emerged from non-living chemicals, has no scientific proof. Despite decades of research, no one has been able to replicate or explain how life could start naturally. There hasn't been one successful experiment that could show that non-living matter can create living cells. Number 5. Genetic limits. Mutations are the driving force of evolution, but they don't create new information. They often cause damage or rearrange existing genes. In experiments, we've seen bacteria adapt, but they remain bacteria. There is no leap to a new species. In a nutshell, you can tune a Toyota, but it will never turn into a Ferrari. Number 6. Fossil dating circularity. Fossils are dated by the rocks they're found in, and rocks are dated by the fossils they contain. It is a system that assumes the age of both rather than proving it. This is circular reasoning and cannot prove supposed evolutionary timelines. Number 7. Missing mechanisms for macroevolution. Microevolution, like breeding different dog types, is observable and accepted. But macroevolution, species transforming into entirely new forms like fish becoming mammals, has never been observed in nature or the laboratory. The mechanism for such a large transformation remains unexplained to this very day. Number 8. Consciousness conundrum. Evolution cannot explain the origin of consciousness, our ability to think, reason, and be self-aware. How can random mutations produce things like morality, creativity, and abstract thought? Consciousness points to something beyond physical processes. Number 9. Order from chaos. The odds of random mutations assembling complex life are astronomically low. DNA is a code, a language of sorts. Can random explosions create meaningful sentences? It's not just unlikely, it's pretty much impossible. Number 10. Human uniqueness. Let's pause and think about what truly sets humans apart. We create symphonies, solve mathematical problems, explore the universe, and even question our own existence. No other species does this. Evolution tells us we're just more advanced animals. Yet the gap between humans and the next most intelligent species is enormous. So much so that it's unbridgeable. Take language, for example. While some animals can communicate basic needs, humans can write poetry, craft legal systems, and invent entirely new languages. Or think about technology. Other species might use simple tools, but only humans can build an airplane that brings you from Asia to America in one day. Even our ability to reflect on morality and abstract concepts like justice and love has no parallel in the animal kingdom. Scientists have long wondered why humans are so unique. Our brain size alone doesn't fully explain it. Dolphins and some primates have large brains relative to their size, yet they remain bound by instinct. The leap from animal cognition to human intelligence isn't a small step, it's a chasm. Evolution struggles to explain this leap, how random mutations could create beings capable of abstract thought and unparalleled innovation. We are not just products of survival, we are driven by curiosity, creativity, and the pursuit of meaning. Evolution may try to box us in as animals, but the evidence suggests we are something far more extraordinary.
You're an atheist?
I am definitely an atheist, yes.
Now, why are you an atheist?
Why am I an atheist? Because there is no God.
Atheism assumes that you can disprove the existence of a God. Agnostic is a more correct term, but I'm an atheist.
Are you an atheist?
Yeah.
I am an atheist, yeah.
I am, yes.
I am.
So you're not an atheist?
No, I'm not.
So you're leaning that way because of evolution?
Yeah.
I don't believe in there's a guy in the sky that lives in the sky.
You believe in evolution?
Of course I do, yes.
Live science says of Darwinian evolution, it can turn dinosaurs into birds, apes into humans, and amphibious mammals into whales.
What Darwin showed in his work on evolution and natural selection is that we don't need to invoke any supernatural force or power to account for the development of life through time on Earth.
The ongoing processes that are observable in today's world.
Do you think it's a belief?
I think it's just fact.
I think more like facts.
There is too much evidence to ignore.
Do you think it's a belief?
No, it's science.
It's the way it happened.
It's logical.
You know, all the scientists pretty much agree with it.
It's more of a fact.
When did you start to believe?
When I started to think for myself.
When did you start believing?
When I took my first biology class.
It all started to make a lot of sense. The teacher made it very, very easy to understand. I generally trust the scientific community. Makes more sense than any religion or anything. The fossils they found of all the cavemen, the Homo sapiens, dinosaurs, it shows clear evidence.
I believe in science.
What's your major here at this university?
Biology.
You're a biology major?
Yeah.
You believe in evolution?
Yes.
What's your major?
Geology.
Chemistry.
Biochemistry. Environmental science and policy. I'm a physicist.
Biochemistry.
Okay, do you believe in evolution?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe in evolution?
Yes, I do. Of course.
Yes, I do.
I do believe in evolution.
You believe in evolution?
Yes.
Are you a strong believer?
Yes.
Are you a strong believer?
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
A scientific method is based on the collection of data through observation and experimentation. Science Daily.
Could you give me some observable evidence that evolution is true? Something I don't have to receive by faith.
Yeah.
Some observable evidence.
I mean, take a look at what happened 65 million years ago.
Hang on, I can't. That's 65 million years ago.
I believe, millions of years.
So that can't be observed.
We can trace the evolution through the fossil record.
Could you be specific? Just give me one.
Between 6 and 7 million years ago.
Hundreds of thousands to millions of years?
So it's quite a long time.
Yes.
Millions of years.
Yes.
So it can't be observed.
Evolution is not testable over time.
We are condemned to live only for a few decades, and that's too slow, too small a time scale to see evolution going on. Richard Dawkins. We see nothing of these slow changes in progress until the hand of time has marked the lapse of ages. Charles Darwin.
You've got the canine kind, the coyote, and the domestic dog, and there's the feline kind, which is the cats, the tiger and the kitten, and you've got humankind. So Darwin said there'd be a change of kinds over many years. So could you give me one example of observable evidence of a change of kinds?
So, for instance, the fossil record shows the common ancestors of all carnivores, that cats and dogs were once linked, once united by a common ancestor.
How long ago?
This, I believe, was like 60 million years ago.
I don't want something I have to accept by faith. I want it to be observable.
Observable evidence. Well, I mean, if you're just asking me here on the street, there's not really much I can tell you in terms of observable evidence. Like, we would have to really examine existing data to draw conclusions of our own.
I would have to have faith then.
We would have to have some amount of faith.
Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution where he said there'd be a change of kinds?
Monkey to man, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, a change of kinds.
I don't really believe there's any proof for that yet.
Well, monkeys are the only ones with the 5th digit, like we have.
Well, koalas have a 5th digit. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Think we're evolved from koalas?
No.
When I went to Washington, D.C., I saw they had a whole exhibit just on the...
In the Smithsonian?
Yeah, in the Smithsonian.
Oh, wait, so that is just like some stuffed dummies, like standing around a fire.
I know that everyone talks about the missing link for humans and whatnot. I believe that there are connections that are out there that we haven't found yet.
I'm going to trust what those experts did. Those experts came up with.
I have a strong trust in evolutionary ideas based on the evidence presented.
Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds?
I haven't seen it myself, but I believe what the textbooks tell me about it, so...
You've got faith in the experts?
I have faith in the experts, yeah. I guess similar to how religious people have faith that God actually exists, I have faith in the experts knowing what they're talking about.
The scientific method must be observable and repeatable. So could you give me one piece of observable evidence for Darwinian evolution?
Okay, I would point to, as one great example, is look at the genetics of the stickleback.
What's that?
So stickleback fish are a very interesting collection of species that were recently isolated after the end of the Ice Age.
What did they become?
They're various species of sticklebacks.
They stayed as fish?
Well, of course.
Can you think of any observable evidence where there was a change of kinds?
Fish.
Human beings are still fish.
Human beings are fish?
Why, yes, of course they are.
How long did that take?
A couple of billions of years, millions.
A couple of millions? How is that observable?
It's not.
We came out of the ground as a mammal, and one mammal created...
Come out of the ground? Didn't we come out of the sea?
Huh? Well, initially in the beginning, we came out of the ground and the sea after the great destruction of the...
So did we have lungs or gills when we came out of the sea?
You want to know something? Those that were in the sea, I guess, had gills, and those that were on land had lungs.
But if we came out of the sea, we had gills in the sea.
You want to know something? Who knows that we came out of the sea or we evolved from mammals?
So you don't know?
Huh? Of course I don't know.
I'm accepting that they did their science correctly.
Could you give me an example of Darwinian evolution, not adaptation or speciation, but a change of kinds?
These are changes of kinds.
They're still fish.
They're distinctly different fish.
We have thousands of examples.
Can you give me one?
I can give you thousands.
Just one.
For instance, I would say look at Lenski's experiments with bacteria then.
So what do the bacteria become?
The bacteria are still bacteria, of course.
So that's not Darwinian evolution. That's not a change of kinds, is it?
It is a change. It is a change in the genetic makeup of the bacteria, which is
still bacteria. So what did the bacteria become?
A new kind of bacterium.
So it's still bacteria. There's no change of kinds. To summarize, the observable evidence that you give me for Darwinian evolution is bacteria becoming bacteria.
No, it is bacteria acquiring new metabolic capabilities.
You said before that there is lots of evidence for evolution. I just want one observable evidence for Darwinian evolution, just one.
But I gave you some. You don't want...
Not some, I want one.
Wait, you don't want that.
I want one. Yes, I do. I'm pleading with people.
You asked me to tell you when I've watched one species evolve into another. Isn't that right?
No, one kind into another. There's 14 different definitions of species. So I want a change of kind.
When you're talking about kinds or change in families, you're actually talking about macroevolution. You're talking about changes on the level that separate, say, cats from dogs.
So could you give me any examples of Darwinian evolution?
Well, when you say examples of that, then you have to sort of look at over a longer time frame.
It has nothing to do with faith. Faith is something that I have to, unseen, I have to believe in.
That's it, unseen. Look, do you believe evolution?
Of course I do.
Are you a believer in evolution?
Yes, I am.
When did you start to believe evolution?
I started to believe evolution when I started to think out for myself.
Is evolution a belief?
Well, you know something, evolution is a thought process. Is coming to terms and checking out all the alternatives, like taking a look at the religion, man-made religions.
Let me ask you again, is evolution a belief?
No, evolution is, well, yeah, in a word, yeah, I could say it could be a belief.
When you say change of kinds, you mean the evolution of one species from another or to another? Yes, we have that in action, actually, in the Galapagos.
Could you give me one instance?
Yes, we have an example from a group of birds called Darwin's finches.
You take a look at the difference between the finches on the islands that all started out. I mean, that's very, very observable.
But that's not Darwinian evolution. There's been no change of kinds. What did the finches become?
They become genetically new and anatomically new, recognizably different species.
So they're still finches?
Well, of course, they're still finches, yes.
So there's no change of kind.
Little birds that he had observed.
What did they become?
Their beak shapes.
They're still birds.
Yes.
3 finches that turn into different types of birds.
They're still finches.
Well, for example, Darwin and his study on evolution of the birds on the island that he went on to there.
Their beaks changed?
Their beaks.
They're still birds. There's no change of kinds. That's within the kind.
Just evolution on the beaks.
So that's called adaptation. It's not Darwinian evolution. There's no change of kinds. There's no different animal involved. I want something that shows me Darwin's belief in a change of kinds as scientific. Darwin spoke of a change of kind. Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution where there's a change of kind?
Change of kind. Change of kind. I'm gonna have to think about that one a little longer.
You give me anything that I can see, observe, and test, which is a scientific method for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds.
Test and observe.
Could you give me observable evidence, which is a scientific method for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds?
Okay, I gotta think about it. So you want the evidence of it?
I would say
I cannot, I think. It's a hard question, actually. Mitochondrial DNA. So, can you repeat the question again?
Could you give me any observable evidence, just one, for Darwinian evolution?
Let me think about that for a sec.
Observable evidence, something where we don't have to exercise faith. Something that can be observed, like the scientific process, observable.
That's a good question. That one I'm not quite sure.
So you can't think of any observable evidence for evolution?
No.
How do you know it's true?
I'm not sure.
So Darwinian evolution is not observable, it's not scientific.
I guess so.
So it's unscientific, you can't prove it.
It's scientific, actually. You could prove it. It could be proven, just...
Do it for me.
That's hard. That's just too broad of a...
It's unobservable, that's why you need millions of years.
Yes, exactly.
You're trusting the biology majors and the biology professors know what they're talking about, and they can't even give me evidence of a change of kinds.
Well, then there isn't one. If they don't give it, then I wouldn't say there was.
Yeah. I just go on what I've seen and what I've learned from class.
So you believe?
Yeah.
You know what that's called?
What?
Blind faith.
Blind faith.
Faith is the great cop-out, the great excuse to evade the need to think and evaluate evidence. Richard Dawkins.
Do you believe in intelligent design?
Of course not.
Do you think everything is intelligently designed?
No, I don't believe that things are intelligently designed.
Okay, you seem like an intelligent person, so I'm going to ask you something. I'd like you to make me a rose, okay? How would you make a rose?
I don't have the capabilities to do that.
Hang on. No, it's not intelligently designed, so you should be able to whip me up a rose real quick. Do you believe a rose is intelligently designed?
Definitely not.
In order for me to know what to make, I have to know what a rose is.
Well, it's got a seed, so you've got to start with nothing and you've got to create a seed from nothing.
Oh.
Can you do that?
No, I can't.
Could you make a rose from nothing?
No.
Can't make something from nothing. It's just basic, science.
A rose from nothing?
A rose.
Just like, I can't, honestly.
Why not?
Me, I have no supernatural abilities.
All the geniuses in the world can't make a grain of sand from nothing. We don't know where to start.
I can't.
Why not?
I don't have millions, billions of years.
That would be physically impossible. I mean, that would have to... That's not possible.
So how could you say everything's not intelligently designed? Where does that leave you on the scale of intelligence if you say everything's not intelligently designed and you can't even make a rose?
He gon' send his hand. Destruction gotta come, that's how he get us out this lane. The devil working hard, trying to get us out his plane. His sheep hear his voice, so he can't get us out his hand. We gon' trust the son of man, blow your wings, Father. Your kingdom coming, we just trying to make it in, Father. Rather we...